Hi guys, you ready? One of my favorite guests of all time is visiting us in Montreal, Hamid Abdel-Samad. How are you, sir?
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Such a pleasure to see you. We'll go after for coffee. I'll show you where I watch all the World Cup games, which is going to lead me to the most important question, which I'm going to ask in Arabic. بنبلش بالسؤال أهم واحد. كيف شعورك هلا إنه ألمانيا والمصر ظهروا من الورلد كاب؟
زعلان. بلاش السؤال ده.
I said let's start with the most important question. Both Egypt, Hamid is originally from Egypt and he's also German. Both teams have crashed out of the World Cup. So I asked him what are his feelings about that loss. He said, this is not the question we should be asking. So there you go. So the last time I was shocked, and I think you were too, that it's been more than 2 years that we chatted on the show.
Yeah, I thought it was last year.
Me too. Incredible. So I think it was in May 2016. So tons of stuff must have happened since. What's been happening with you? What have you been doing on the field?
Yeah, I published 2 more books. I was having a tour in Europe, making TV reportage for German-French TV. I visited Morocco and delivered some speeches there, which was a high-risk mission for me, but I did it because I wanted to cross this wall.
How was the reception?
Amazingly positive.
Really?
Yes, this is something which is totally new for me. Like the Moroccan left invited me.
Okay.
And I am familiar with the German left and the French left who don't like me at all.
Right.
So that
because you're an Islamophobe, you're a bigot, you're a racist.
Name it, you name it. And that the left and the human rights organization in Morocco were inviting me so that I will have a speech there, and I was calling the speech, I don't know how to put it in English because it's a difficult word, enlightenmentophobia.
Enlightenmentophobia.
So enlightenment.
Progressophobia.
So progressophobia.
Reasonophobia.
All of this.
Yeah.
So that's what I was calling it, and the people just liked it. First there was very positive reception in the Moroccan media, and after that, very negative from the Islamist side. How could the government allow such a person to come and deliver a speech in Morocco, and so on? So
wow. Now, is the left in Morocco? I mean, they're secularists, they're atheists, they're anti-religion in general. What's their characteristic?
Well, the first characteristic of the left in Morocco, they are very close to the misery that religion brought to their society.
Right.
So they cannot afford to sit in this ivory tower and fantasize about how peaceful Islam is and how nice Islam is, and that hijab means empowerment. They know what hijab means.
Feminist empowerment.
Yes. So the Moroccan feminist would never protect hijab or talk positive about it. They know what it means. They see it in the families every day. So that's basically the difference. They are more to the reality, close to the reality. They are close to the misery that has been caused by religion in such societies.
Now, of course, you're from Egypt originally, both North African countries, but I would think that Egypt is somewhat more...
Both left the World Cup.
Both left the World Cup. We won't mention Morocco also. Actually, all African teams are now
all
out.
Africans,
Senegal
or
is
Arabs,
out.
or Muslims.
Okay, so then let me ask you this just before we come back to the issues. I'm going to say it in Arabic. أنا وياك ما بنآمن بالله بس أكيد بنآمن بليونيل ميسي. No?
I have problems with Lionel Messi.
لا غلط.
I have a problem.
ما فينا نكون أصحاب إذا بتقول هيك كلام.
يعني بصراحة ليونيل ميسي ما في روح. He has good techniques, but I just am missing the spirit.
Okay, he's hurting me.
Elan vital.
Elan vital, مظبوط. I asked him, I said, both you and I are atheists, so we don't believe in God. But surely we can agree that we both believe in Lionel Messi. And my man here equivocated. He said, I don't think I can because he lacks that oomph, that elan vital. So أنت بتحب لكن رونالدو.
ولا رونالدو.
Okay. He doesn't like Ronaldo either, so I will let it pass.
There is a new guy who is really very good, and his name is Mo Salah. He has all the characteristics I like.
Oh, yeah.
He is quiet. He doesn't have scandals.
He's humble.
He's humble, and he's playing very good.
And his wife wears a hijab, so that's very positive.
Well, I mean, this is not exactly the thing. But I mean, she can wear whatever she wants to wear. But he is as a character.
He is.
He's just playing, and he's giving a good example of a person who has integrated himself in England. He learned from the mistakes of other Arab players
True.
who came to Europe, and I think he's doing good.
No, Laziz, he's like a sweet guy. He looks like he carries himself with dignity.
Very decent.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah. So going back, when you compare the Moroccan experience there in the streets to Egypt, Morocco is one of those countries that's traditionally more, quote, progressive. There was still a Jewish community in Morocco until pretty recently. There's still maybe a few Jews still.
25,000, I think the biggest.
That much?
25,000.
Okay, I thought it was a bit less. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you see a clear difference between your experiences in Egypt and what you saw today in Morocco?
Well, we have to be realistic. I mean, we are talking about progressive people who invited me, and I saw positive feedback. But we cannot forget that just a few days ago, many young people were just sentenced to prison, 20 years, 15 years, just for uprising, just for taking to the streets, protesting against the prices, against the high prices, against the life condition in Morocco. So we are still far away from a really secular state. But at least you can detect some kind of political will from the side of the king to reform and to renovate the country and to bring some renovations. But all diseases are there. The society there are so many layers of extremism, like hidden and visible extremism, and it's not just like one man who can change all of this. We had this. Like they are dreaming of reform because the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia is now like allowing women to drive.
Yeah.
Just to celebrate the fact that now women can drive in a country is showing you how silly the project of reform is. Like how like backward we are still. So. And I'm always warning the people who say the king wants a reform, or the crown prince wants a reform, or the Sisi wants a reform. I tell them, remember the history of enlightenment. The reform which is coming by one person can be taken away by another person. Yeah. And we have 2 examples or 3 examples in the Islamic history. We had the Iranian Shah was trying to bring enlightenment. Khomeini took it back. We had Ataturk and Erdogan. And we had Gamal Abdel Nasser, who somehow tried some kind of modernization, and the Muslim brothers just took it back. So don't dream of like Saladin or the savior who will come and just like bring you enlightenment. Enlightenment means the masses should be enlightened. They should think about their future. They should have kind of distance towards their own history, religion, societies, nations, and see the weak points and try to optimize it or change it. And as long as religion is having this prominent role in the society, as long as Islamic identity, Muslim means Islam. Yeah. So this is the begin of the problem. Like, there is no distance. So right. Islam is not allowing this kind of critical distance just to see the mistakes. No, it's perfect. It's the last word of God. And being a Muslim means you have to be a Quran walking in 2 legs.
Right. Yeah. So then, speaking of, it's the final inerrant word of God, and I think we touched on this the last time you came. So does that mean that from the get-go, from the point zero, to discuss reformation of the doctrines is by itself a contradiction, since kil harf is the perfect thing, every syllable, and we're done? So does someone like Imam Tawhidi, as wonderful as he is, and he's become a good friend, and you know him, and he's come on the show several times. We even held a chat, I think, in this room, and Mufassir Islam also came. Are they misguided in that while they wish to reform it, it is bound to fail?
Well, first of all, I'm very thankful for every voice like Imam Tawhidi and Rahil Reza, whatever they are doing, because we need rational people who get this rational access to religion. But I have a different approach. I don't believe in reform through the texts of the religion, from within the religion. I believe in reform of the minds of the people, reforming their attitude towards religion. But just to come and say, oh, now this verse of the Quran was misunderstood.
Right, kill meant caress. Sort of.
Yeah, you can put it that way. So, or hit, you can hit your wife. No, hit doesn't mean
gently.
Really hit.
It means
it just
massage.
You can put it with the toothbrush.
Right.
Like, thank you.
Right. It's funny because when I had Mufassal Islam and Imam Tawhidi, and I was supposed to be the moderator between them, one of the things that I kept trying to do in the conversation is to move them away from a discussion of the specific weeds.
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of viewers were actually upset at me because they're saying, no, but we want to hear the weeds. But I fully agree with you that that's just frankly a waste of time, because there's always someone who could come along and come up with an endless mental gymnastics, culbut to come up with a new interpretation.
I think Muslim theologians are the world champions in mental gymnastics and acrobats. They're doing that. The word acrobats, they're trying to, word gymnastics, trying to change. But you know what? Not only because of that is, in the moment I say, let's go back to the text and see the right interpretation, I still give the text the power to judge over me.
Right.
So why should I?
Right.
I just can take the other way. I don't believe in reformation through the text. I believe in emancipation from the text. To say, come on, we are living now in much complicated societies. We have read much more books than Muhammad. We made much better experiences than he did. Why should we get back to his words and try to screw it and try to find another interpretation? Why can't I say, hello, I will just emancipate myself from that. It's not my life. It was not meant for me. I'm much, much further intellectually and socially and politically. The world today is much more complicated. Scientifically, the world today is much more developed than his world. So why should we go back to his world?
I saw a interaction that you had, and maybe you'll talk about that documentary that you did. I think it was you had gone to a mosque I think it was in Germany.
It was in Berlin, yes.
It was in Berlin. You were speaking to a hijab woman. You could tell it was polite, but there's a lot of tension. You were surrounded by massive bodyguards, which struck me as surprising because because Justin Trudeau told me that Islam is a religion of peace. So why is it that you would need any bodyguards? Because you should only be accosted with peace, but apparently you needed these big bodyguards. But in any case, when you were chatting with the lady, you could tell that she tries to at first come up with all of the possible obstacles, and then you tell her, but I can take you to Surah 33, and then you could see her brain was about to explode. Maybe you could tell us about that experience, and then more generally the documentary.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why religious Muslims don't like to discuss with me, because they love to discuss with Germans, with French, especially the left, and tell them Islam is a religion of peace, and they bring them some verses from the Quran which exist.
The abrogated ones.
Yeah. And they just hate it when somebody really knows the Quran and knows the sequence and knows the story of abrogation, and just tell them, okay, when I confront them with these things, they can say nothing. So that's basically what happened to this woman. But
did you end up, because I only saw a 6-minute clip, I didn't see when you were supposed to meet later again, where you would show her the Surah 33.
Yes.
Did you end up meeting her?
She didn't make any appointment after that. She didn't accept any kind of meeting. Of course, she would say that, I wanted to go with her in that moment to the mosque, because she said, we don't have such a thing. I told her, okay, let's go to your mosque. I will go to the library of your mosque, and I will bring it, and I will show it to you. And then she said, maybe another time.
Yeah. It was actually the surah with the Eid al-Yamin, right?
It's that Muslims in war are allowed to have women as spoils of war. You said booty, booty or spoils of war, and subject them sexually, use them as sexual subjects, sexual slaves.
Yeah.
And there are many verses in the Quran talking about that. So it's in another surah, it's written that, for example, a man is not allowed to touch a married woman except what your right hand
That's right.
possesses.
In
What
the
your
end.
right hand possesses means the sex slaves. So if you take her as a booty in the war, and she's married, you can take her
Right.
and anytime. So not only that, if you have a slave, two slaves, one is woman and one is man. Just imagine how humiliating that is. This is Islamic law. If you have two slaves, one a man, one a woman, and you married them to each other, some were doing that, you still have the right to take her.
Right.
And you forbid him to sleep with her for 1 month until she will have her period. Then after that, you can sleep with her, and then you can give it back to him. So what kind of life is that? What kind of, and we need to go back to these verses and try to say, like, there is a new linguistic access and hermeneutic and
hermeneutics. Well, that's the thing. Usually the strategies are, you don't speak Arabic. That's a problem because you're fluent in Arabic.
Yeah.
Oh, but you're not Muslim, but you were. Oh, but you don't know Islam. Your dad was an imam. So all of the first level of attacks are horrible with you. So then we have to go into hermeneutics, but it's because new Arabic philology says this, blah, 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 right?
But I'm also familiar with that, and at the end they will attack you personally. These are the steps.
That's right.
So it's like self-hating Muslims, like paid by the Mossad or,
That's right.
or the CIA or all of these things. So it's never, come on, he has a point. Let's
Right.
discuss about, no. So this option is not available.
Because is it because, I mean, I guess this doesn't just apply to Muslims, it applies to anybody who's vested in religion. Is it that moment when they realize that their edifice is about to be, then I'm almost losing my identity. That's what happened to that woman who was in hijab. I could see it in her, right? She almost couldn't speak anymore.
Yes. I am familiar with this. This happens a lot. That brings me to what I said earlier today. Like, Islam is expecting Muslims to be one with Islam. So there is no distance to that. I can say, okay, I can criticize this aspect and I still can be a Muslim.
Right.
No. There are new studies in Germany about the behavior of Muslim people who are psychologically sick, so that they have difficulties to talk to their doctors.
Right.
Because the culture of honor is and saving the face is not allowing them to talk about the weaknesses of their culture.
I've spoken exactly about this. I've talked about the idea that in clinical psychology and in psychiatry, the exact thing that was lauded, that was seen as part of being progressive in the West, right? Everybody was in therapy, right? If you weren't even if you had no problems, if you weren't in therapy, that means you didn't have self-insight. You didn't go to explore yourself. Those exact things that were lauded in the West is exactly what brings you shame in Islamic society. Exactly for what you said.
Yes.
I'm going to go to a third party, an anonymous, a stranger, and I'm going to admit my weaknesses? Never.
Exactly, and that's exactly the clash between these two cultures, the culture of guilt and the culture of shame.
That's exactly right.
And when they meet together, you see wonderful things happening. I'm hosting this program, Box of Islam in Arabic.
Sanduq al-Islam.
Sanduq al-Islam. And I recently posted an episode, and I was asking, why don't we Muslims say sorry? Why don't, like, all cultures were just like making up with their past, trying to like say sorry for the thing that happened. The Germans did it. The American did it in relation to the slaves. The church, the Catholic Church, did it in relation to Inquisition and even the Crusades. But who is the culture that never said sorry? It's the Muslim culture. It's like the Turks. They never said sorry for the genocide of the Armenians. And the long history of Islamic conquest. We talk about slavery in the United States. We talk about 4 million people. How about slavery in the Islamic world?
A lot bigger.
Alone in Africa, 17 million people. 17 million people at that time that were enslaved by Muslims were almost 20% of all Africans. So there were just armies to hunt slaves. All the women that has been raped, the culture of Islam, the kingdom of Islam was built over 2/3 of the old Christian world. We never said sorry to them, that we put their culture down, then their languages, rape their women, all of these things. So why can't we just take a step back and say, we are sorry for that? And this sorry is not going to put us down. On the contrary, it will open a new door for us to be a part of humanity, to share the values of the modern world, not just consider it. But there is an obstacle to that. Because it's written in the Quran that we are the best nation that has ever been brought to humanity and the first that left the World Cup.
Therefore, you can't do no wrong. The first World Cup, very true. But that's just because God's been busy doing something else. If he pays attention, the Muslims will win. I've seen the inability to say sorry. I mean, you're talking about it at the aggregate level, at the societal level. At the individual level, when people are unable to say sorry, in a sense, it's a form of malignant narcissism, right? Because to lower your head in true sense of, look, I do things wrong, I speak rudely to my children. After 5 minutes, there's a voice in my head that says, that was wrong. I go back and I hug them. I say, with my dogs, I do that, right? Because I don't have so much negative pride that I feel that I'm lowering myself by admitting that I made a fault. But I know of people, and if they're watching, they might know who they are. I know of people in my own family who are unable. It is an impossibility. They've even stated openly that they will never say sorry for nothing. And usually it's with the Arabic, never, right? So it's very much, it's certainly Islamic, but I think it almost comes somehow with the Middle East. It's the saving face.
Yes.
I admit fault. That means I've lost face. I will never do that.
I have the same problem with some of the Egyptian Christians.
Exactly.
And when they say, but we are Christians, and so on, I told them, yeah, you are Christians, but you are Christians according to the Sunnah of the Prophet. So you are still a part of this culture. So it has been embodied into this culture, hijacked. In fact, it is like this, the false pride. Because in the moment you say sorry, so you are just equating yourself with the person.
Yeah.
So you are trying to build a bridge, but this equality doesn't exist in Islam.
Yeah.
So because there is always a believer and disbeliever, there is always a father and a son. There is always a hierarchy in the issue. So and with this hierarchy, it's similar to Japan.
Yeah.
But it's different. But it's similar to Japan. I've been studying in Japan, and I speak Japanese, and the language itself doesn't allow an equal conversation, because the way you use a verb, it's different if you are talking from up to down or from down to up. So you always use different varieties of the verb. So this makes it impossible to have a real conversation. So culturally, it's the same in Arabic and in Muslim countries, that there should be the teacher and the student, the father and the son.
Men, women,
and
human,
women.
animals.
Exactly. So there's always this hierarchy, and how can you have this mutual respect with this hierarchy?
So what have you, in the last 2 years since we last spoken, you probably haven't conducted surveys, but you have a sense, are you getting through to a lot of people? Are you receiving an increased number of emails that are saying, look, since I'm following yourself, what's your feeling from your continued engagement with this topic?
Well, first of all, I feel good about what I'm doing. That's the most important thing. I'm having a very horrible situation in Germany and in Europe. I'm always surrounded with those bodyguards. They're German policemen. By the way, they were supposed to come with me to Canada because I'm having open speech here, but the Canadian government refused.
So you're...
I came on my own. I came on my own. Wow. So they refused. I don't know why. Because I thought Germany and Canada are partners. So I guess if they were terrorists, they would come in. Because they carry weapons, of course.
Oh, if you were a terrorist, Justin Trudeau would make you immediately a Canadian citizen and give you $30 million.
Well, we don't want to be polemic, but
okay,
I understand. But I understand this, because usually a terrorist would have. It's easier for a terrorist to to come with weapons to Canada than to German policemen to protect somebody who is threatened by Islamist group. But anyway, I don't want to complain. I hope, as they said Montreal is safe city and nothing will happen.
I think there was a study that was done, I can't remember where by whom, but that ranked, I think, the 8 most extremist mosques in the world, and one of them is in Montreal. So let us hope that you're not speaking there.
Thank you.
So this is your first time in Montreal, correct?
Yes, in Montreal.
And in Canada in general, I think.
Well, I came until the borders once,
Okay.
but yeah.
Okay, well, we'll try to show you around. Hopefully, you'll have a good impression of Montreal.
Okay.
So tell us, you said you wrote 2 recent books. Maybe you want to tell us about each of them quickly?
One of them was a discussion with a Muslim scholar who is like the most famous Muslim theologian in Germany. He's a professor of theology, and he's taking the line of Imam Tawhidi and Majid Nawaz and like the reformist side. And I respect him so much. And we had a talk once about the reform of Islam, and he believes that Islam can be reformed, and I believe it's an illusion. And we wrote a book about it.
About your dialogue?
Yes, it was like this. It was 500 years celebrating Martin Luther, and we wrote 95 theses.
Very nice.
About Islam,
Right.
just like Luther did about Christianity.
When he hung it on the...
So,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what happened.
Okay.
Like, we wrote the 95 theses. He believes in reform. I don't believe in reform. I told him, tell me which mosque is going to hang our
Right.
90. It's not possible. Can we make this dialogue in Cairo or in Tehran or in Riyadh or in... It's nice to sit in Berlin and discuss about reforming Islam. And the comparison with Martin Luther is just a wrong comparison. Like, Martin Luther was reforming one aspect of Christianity. It's just, how do you call Sukuk al-Ghufran, when the church is selling the letters of forgiveness?
Not ordinances. I know what you're talking
But
about.
people
Indulgences.
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 So he was just criticizing this, and he was having a point. He said Jesus never did it as our role model, and it's not written in the Bible. End of the story. So he was quoting the founder of the religion and the scripture of the religion, and he figured out these indulgences have no religious background. So if you want to reform the idea of jihad, can you say Muhammad never practiced jihad?
Right.
Can you say it's not written in Quran? So if you want to reform the way we are dealing with women in Muslim countries, can you say Muhammad didn't marry 9 or 13 women? He didn't allow women to be sex slaves. He didn't say you can hit your wife.
Consummate the marriage with Aisha at 9 years old.
So you cannot get back to this role model, to these texts, and rely on them to reform Islam. So my understanding of reform, I'm repeating myself, is not reinterpreting these texts, but pushing them away, emancipating yourself from these texts and say, like, I don't need all texts to understand my life. I can still read these texts as a way for my spirituality, to pray, as a, like, believing in a private sense, but I cannot rely on them as aspects or as regulating social life, social order, laws, politics, everything. So that's my access to the topic of reform. Like, free your mind first from this idea that this is the last word of God.
So
No, they don't want to touch this. No,
Right.
Keep it as the word of God and let's reinterpret it. Okay, who are you to tell me what God really meant?
Right.
So it's arrogant.
So you're saying you could, for example, I always say I'm an atheist Jew, right?
Yeah.
In that being Jewish is a multifaceted construct, one of which is belief in whatever religious booga stuff. But I can be Jewish in that I am part of a shared history,
Yeah.
part of a shared people, part of a genetic lineage, part of a culture.
Exactly.
and therefore I can feel very Jewish in that sense,
Yeah.
and yet give up all of that stuff. So are you hoping that when I call myself atheist Jew, that's what you would want? So people can still feel very proud of a lot of things that are Islamic architecture, Islamic music, Islamic culture, Islamic hospitality. So I am Muslim, but drop all the stuff.
Yeah, I'm a cultural Muslim, but I don't want to limit myself to this identity. I don't even use the word atheist, although I am non-religious, because I don't want to say I know the truth. I don't know. I'm just open. I'm learning, but I figured out no religion can give me any answers. I have to find the answers inside myself through going through life and learning through experience. And you can experience yourself in a very spiritual way too, without all of this hustle and bustle of the religion, all the dogmas and the laws and the social order. Why? So you can be a free human being, and you can still be a cultural Muslim. And I know many cultural Muslims who are not practicing their religion, who are not. But some of them, that's what annoys me. They would come and defend Islam, although Islam would just like chop their heads for what they're doing in their daily life.
Yeah, the minute that you confront them about their most fundamental identity, they become very tribal.
Yes.
And in a sense, I felt that was the dynamic that took place between Imam Tawhidi and Mufassal Islam. Okay. Because the reality is, when I hear them both speak, they almost sound the same. They're both quite critical of Islam. Yeah. But when Mufassal came in, because it's a debate, and so it seemed as though it was adversarial, then I felt that Imam Tawhidi started defending Islam in a way that I've never seen him defend it. So I think it's part of human nature that once you heck, right, I got to defend myself.
Yeah, it is like this. Like, I'm familiar with that because of my show. Like, my show has been clicked now about 18 million times, which is amazing for a historic show.
But it's almost all Arabic, right? If people want to watch it, if they're not Arabic,
there are some episodes in English and in German.
Okay.
Like, I feel like, but I understand, like, when you criticize the religion of someone, not the area of reason is moving in your brain, but the area of emotion.
Right.
So, and that's where tribalism come from. Oh, no, that's my identity. That's my core. I have no time to think about what he's saying. I have to defend. First. So that I see that, and guess what? I used to be so. So I understand people even more, because I used to be like this. I used to like rush to defend my religion, my prophet, my Quran, without allowing a thought of criticism. And then I just caught myself once. Why are you doing this?
So what was it? I don't know if we discussed it, but even if we did, it's worth repeating. Do you have an exact rough moment where you felt? Many
rough moments. Like I had wonderful talks with my father, like talking about hell, the concept of hell. Like, as a teenager, I couldn't accept this concept that we are here in life for 70 or 80 years, and then we will go to hell forever just for making some mistakes in this life. This is against my idea about a merciful God. Later, I was in the library in the city of Augsburg. So I was trying to make a research, and I was searching the Quran in German. And that was before the digitalization. Mm-hmm. So I was searching in these cards for the Quran. So I found the Quran, and it shocked me what was written there. Quran, author unknown. So I was just like, what? Everybody knows that it's the Almighty God.
That's right.
But I was thinking, okay, see it from a scientific point of view. No scientist can say God wrote the Quran. And if they will say Muhammad wrote the Quran, Muslims will be angry. So obviously, author unknown. So this author unknown thing was like...
It shook you.
Yeah, it was shooking me. And then later I was myself working as a teacher of Islamic studies at the university. So I was teaching the Quran. So I was making a deal with myself. You are a scholar here. So you are not selling your culture. You are not defending your culture. And then I started to analyze this book from a neutral point of view, which was very difficult. And I just figured out, oh my God, that's a human product.
Yeah.
And in fact, I was shocked that I discovered that so late. but you are surrounded with so many walls, emotions. You are feeded with it with the milk of your mother.
That's right.
So you have no defense mechanism against this conquest. So this is a mental conquest that happens. The indoctrination happens to every Muslim child, in fact, and very few of them are having the luxury to have this distance and think about it rationally and get rid of their emotions. And that's what happened to me. So I decided to be a scholar, not a Muslim activist.
Right.
So, and this is how I got this distance, and I discovered all the mistakes and even grammatical mistakes in the Quran, logical mistakes, a lot of
scientific mistakes,
historic, everything. So
the sun sets in a puddle of mud.
Yeah, and the stars are made as lambs for the and to shoot the devils when they come to sneak to hear what God is giving the order to the angel. What?
No, but that's metaphoric language, Hamid. You didn't understand it.
Yeah.
But you were saying about indoctrination of children, and I've often made this point, but it's worth repeating. When I teach consumer psychology, and at one point I talk about is it ethical to advertise to children, one of the ways that you tackle that question is you say you could only advertise to a child when he or she has the cognitive and emotional ability to build a defense against your persuasive message. Therefore, you're not allowed to advertise to a child chewing gum until they're 10, because they don't have the defense. But when the child comes out of the mother's womb, you could sell them the most destructive product ever, which is called religion. It doesn't only have to be Islam. It could be Judaism, it could be whatever you want, right?
Everything.
What do you expect them? What kind of defenses? It takes a very special person to escape that indoctrination.
Yes. Yeah, and those are the people I'm talking to.
Right.
So I know the masses will hate me.
Right.
And I'm not seeking the celebration of the masses, but I hope that through what I'm doing, that, and I see that already. I see people who are coming and try to imitate me, to make shows and to write books and to be part of these discussions. So we have them also in Islamic countries. We have them more in Islamic countries than in Europe or in North America. That's the sad thing.
Yeah.
Here they have the luxury to sit in the ivory tower of immigration and idealize Islam, and to say Islam is the religion of peace. Islam has absolutely no link to terrorism. Every Moroccan or Egyptian or Jordanian intellectual would laugh if he would hear such a sentence. What? With what then? So they would say that in their countries, although it's dangerous. But here, well, it's again part of the tribal thinking. I have to defend my tribe no matter if this tribe is doing the right thing or the wrong thing.
I've had a Jordanian atheist activist on my show. I think I'm ashamed to say, I think it's Muhammad Al-Khadra or something like this, young guy who really got noticed because he appeared somewhere, I think in England. There's like a 10-minute clip of him. Okay. Have you seen this?
I heard about him, but I haven't
where
seen
he's basically saying something very much to like what you say. He goes, do you know what we have to face back in Jordan? And then you come here and I'm being and I brought him on the show. And then I told people, I said, look at this guy's putting his life literally on the line. And he said it. He goes, he gets death threats and so on. But yet you come to the ivory tower here where someone lectures to you who's never even been to the Middle East. That no, it has not. By the way, I did a SAAD TRUTH clip where I listed all of the causes that people have proposed explains terrorism other than Islam. And you could not believe it. Like if it were satire, it would. I'll give you just a few. Beard bullying. So the guys from San Bernardino, who the husband and wife who went to kill him, what happened is someone made a comment about his beard, and that was a form of beard bullying that pushed him over the edge. It had nothing to do with Islam. Climate change. Bill Nye said the Bataclan attack in Paris. Well, it could be very much related to solar panels and carbon emissions and so on. I mean, it is a form of psychosis that even the most brilliant satire can't mimic.
Yeah. Yes.
How could we get through that?
Yeah, this is the crisis of denial, and you have it on both sides. Do we want to solve the problem? or do we just want to beautify Islam? That's the question I'm posing to my Muslim friends. So what are you heading for? You say it's poverty. I say, okay. The poorest group in Egypt is the Coptic Christians in the south of Egypt. The most oppressed group in Egypt is the Coptic who are living in the south of Egypt. They are enduring incredible oppression. Their kids will be kidnapped and as girls and married to a Muslim, and then they never see them again. They would be dismissed collectively from their village because one of them was posting or even tagged. What happened once, one Coptic guy was tagged in a Facebook post criticizing Muhammad. He didn't even like it, but he was tagged in it, and it appeared on his side. And he was going to prison, and his house was burned, and all the Copts of the village had to leave the village just because of this tag. And none of them, we have never heard of a Coptic suicide bomber. We have never heard of a Yazidi suicide bomber, a Vietnamese suicide bomber. All of these people were enduring poverty, oppression, war crimes. So could it be that it has something to do with Islam, since it's happening in 53 Muslim countries and in every community which is living in the West too? No. Then they have to, that's embarrassing. Therefore, they have to find other beard bullying. That's fantastic.
A lack of art exposure caused the Molenbeek terrorists to do it. Had they only seen a bit more Chagall and Picasso, they would have been more culturally enriched, and then they wouldn't have done what they did. That's a true explanation.
Could it be that their religion is considering the art of Chagall as
haram.
Immoral and haram, and that's also the reason they are away from ballet and from dancing, that singing, even music in Islam is forbidden. So all of these things is just like...
Okay, so the fact that the Muslim and their tribal thinking would try to deny the link between Islam and terrorism, okay, we got that. But how do you explain that even more fervent denial from the Westerners, who even wish to show, even with greater penchant, that there is no link between Islam and terrorism?
Yeah, this brings me, in fact, to the next book. You asked me about the books I wrote. So the second book was about immigrants in Germany and in Europe, and the left, how the left is taking these immigrants as like alliance or allied, and trying to defend them in every sense. You will find the feminist woman who would tell you when a man is trying to help a woman into her coat, he is possessive and he's dominant and he's too masculine. Yeah. The same woman would say hijab means empowerment, and you just think like, where is Freud? I need Freud to explain to me why the left was hijacked by this ideology of Islam. What kind of attraction do they find? So there are many explanations for that. It's a combination of the culture of guilt and culture of superiority. It's the same. Like two things at the same time would create this psychotic behavior. So you feel guilty towards the third world and because of colonialism, blah, blah, blah. And you feel superior to them. They are not as far as you. We've been talking last time in our talk, I remember, about the soft bigotry of lowered expectations.
I was just going to say that, exactly.
That's exactly the point. That's the soft bigotry of lowered expectation. That's the attitude of the left. And I'm just asking myself, what are the traditional values of the left?
Yeah.
So, beginning with Karl Marx, anti-religious. So the left can be anti-Judaism, anti-Israel, anti-Christian, anti-Pope, but when it comes to Islam, no, it's Islamophobia. So why here? Why here? And obviously, it's the most unpeaceful religion on earth.
By a mile.
By a mile. So why are you protecting this? I understand if you want to protect Muslims, and I'm doing that, from being bullied, from being discriminated. Every decent Democrat would do so. But I don't consider a Muslim and Islam to be the same thing.
Yeah.
So no, it's a sign of my respect to Muslims that I criticize Islam. I don't consider them to be like, I don't consider Islam to be their karma, that they have no choice against it. No, they can think about it. They can change their behavior. So the left is searching for somebody to protect. And there is the hierarchy of victimhood.
Of course.
This hierarchy of victimhood is very important for the left. Like a Muslim man is beating his Muslim woman. No, both must be victims of the West. Therefore, he's acting like this.
Absolutely.
So it's crazy. It's like, don't you notice that you are making those people to your subjects? That you are thinking that they are inferior to you, that they cannot behave like you, and that's exactly.
Well, I don't know if I told you the story last time when we chatted, but speaking of the bigotry of expectations, I had once posted a link of a Iraqi astronomer. This was on Facebook, where the Iraqi astronomer is being interviewed somewhere, I don't know, in Arabic, and he's saying, no, this is baloney. The Earth is flat. Here in the Quran it says pa pa pa. Okay, so I post this. I wasn't attacking Muslims. I was just my point was to say, look how religion can poison. This guy's supposed to be an Iraqi astronomer, and yet his religious beliefs supersede his commitment to reason and science. Right away, a white woman, undoubtedly a Christian woman, who herself is a scientist, an evolutionary scientist, posts a reply to me to the effect, I'm paraphrasing her words, why are you attacking these people? Don't you think that they've suffered enough? So her commitment as a scientist wasn't to truth. It was to virtue signal that, there's this nice little Muslim that I have to protect. Why are you being mean? And that says it all, right?
Just be happy that he's astronomer.
Exactly. And shouldn't you be attacking him if his ideas are bad? I mean, if he were Jewish, I should attack him because he's saying the earth is flat. Yeah. But if he's a Muslim, no, come on, you can't attack a Muslim.
We have something similar, that they are trying to make science attractive to young Muslims in Europe now. So they are making projects, trying to tell them, look, the first one who invested chemistry was Muslim. The first one who invented
everything. The first is a Muslim.
The moon. The first one who discovered America was a Muslim. And I was just saying, this is extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
If science and philosophy and knowledge are not attractive by themselves, if you need an Islamic explanation for that or excuse to let them love it, so you are empowering this idea that everything has to go through religion. So that's very fundamentalistic. So why are you doing that? And not only doing that, but also not having any problem posting lies just to make it attractive to them. It's this idea of the first is not true. This idea Islam came up with this culture is not true. Like, if Islam was the religion of chemistry and physics and mathematics, we would have seen those centers in Mecca and Medina, where Islam emerged.
Right.
So no, we saw it in Baghdad and in Cordoba and other areas where also non-Muslims were coming with the knowledge of their old cultures, and the Muslims were profiting from that just by letting them translate. Non-Muslim, no single Muslim was translating.
Yeah.
So it was always like Jews, Syriani, like Syriacs, like coming from other culture, and they were making this work for you. All of the names of the first scholars that they are very proud of, Avicenna, Al-Farabi, Al-Kin, all of these, especially Avicenna, Al-Farabi, they were not Arabs, and they were all slammed as atheists, and they themselves, they were very critical of Islam. So why are you proud of them from one side, but you're not saying what they said about Islam, about this religion?
They do the same thing, by the way. This is really identity politics.
Yeah.
For example, African American studies does the same thing.
Yeah.
Aristotle, no, he was black. Socrates, he was black. The Nubians, all black. Pharaohs, all black.
I'm sorry to say, it's people with inferiority complex who need that.
Yeah.
Like, it's all. I understand the Greeks used to be an old culture and so on. Now they are a small Balkan country. It's painful, so they have to remember. Like, it's just like when any Egyptian is telling me we are the civilization of 7,000 years. I'm telling him, first of all, I cannot buy a falafel by that today. It's not helping me.
Right.
Second, we are not a culture of 7,000 years. We are a culture of 5,000 years. Since 2,000 years, we introduced nothing to humanity. We are burdened, in fact. So don't don't think that this continuation had been always so.
Right.
No, there has been already a break taking place in between.
Well, it reminds me, I went on a backpacking tour in 1990 after I'd finished my MBA, before I was going to start my PhD. And I was doing the tour of Greek islands. So I meet a Greek gentleman who had lived in New York City. And now he had moved back to Greece. And I told him, I said, how come we don't hear anything about you Greeks anymore? You're not present. And his answer, which speaks to kind of looking backwards, he says,
We invented democracy.
More than that. We came up with Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates. We could sit back, right?
Yeah.
And that's really the difference, I think, between and there's actually a measure that looks at whether a culture is more future-looking in terms of its the best years are ahead. America is kind of like that, entrepreneurial, because it's a young culture, versus old cultures that really feel like they used to be the bully on the block, but now they're no longer. You see that, for example, with Germans and French. When you go to an academic conference, there are only two groups of people who are upset that the conference is in English.
Yes.
Everybody accepts it. Arabs accept that it's in English. Israelis accept it. Japanese accept it. But the Germans and French, no, why isn't it in German? Why?
Exactly.
Because there was a day when we were bosses, but now these mean English guys are here. So we need to make people not more humble about their cultures.
And
look forward instead of back.
It goes on and on. And like, it's the way they look at the United States. Like, forget Trump and his administration, but always like how the French and the Germans used to look at the United States, that they have no history and
They're idiots.
So basically, their democracy is not that strong. Basically, they don't have like the old philosophers like we do. But okay, do you notice that now?
Where do they send their kids to
that
the university?
United States is more dynamic democracy than in Europe. The American universities and all of the products. I mean, America is now having Google and Apple and
Facebook,
Twitter, all of this. What do we have in Europe?
Right.
Yeah, criticism, like cultural criticism, cultural relativism.
Yeah.
So that's what.
Well, we see that here in Canada in general, and even more in Quebec, because it's sort of a distinct culture, where there is a real the way that you identify yourself as contra the United States, right? Yeah. We're not like our vulgar cousins in the South.
Yes.
And I detest that.
Yeah.
Define your identity positively rather than by defining how you're not like those bastards in the South.
Yeah, but that's exactly when you don't know who you are,
Exactly.
at least you should know who you are not.
Right. So tell me about you. We were talking about your immigration. I guess the worst of the wave from Mama Merkel is a bit down now. There's fewer people coming in, right? But how is it on the ground? Are they well integrated? Are there major problems?
I think the worst is about to appear, because we have how you call it, incubation time?
Incubation.
Incubation time, yeah. So we have an incubation time of all of these migration waves. First of all, like I always say it, like if there is a real asylum seeker who is coming to America or Canada or Europe, he has the right to apply. If he's coming from a country of war, if he is persecuted. But what we are having is a major wave of illegal immigration that people are calling everyone refugee. And this is not true.
Right.
First of all, this is not true. Oh, I've been slammed recently because I was posting an analogy. I love that, people from the Middle East, they love to talk with analogies about how to solve the problem of the refugees. So I was saying, imagine it's raining heavily, and you discover there is a hole in the ceiling of your living room, and a lot of water was coming in. So the people who are living in the house, and discuss how to solve the problem. So one clever guy was saying, how about closing the hole? And the other saying, no. The best solution is
make it bigger.
No, to distribute the water on all rooms. So basically, I don't know how many people were slamming me for that. Like
these are Muslims or Germans?
Germans.
All right. Because why? You're anti-immigration. You don't have a heart. You don't let people in need come in. Is that it?
Yes, exactly this. And I'm the last one to be like, I'm having projects with refugees, and I don't want to brag what I'm doing. So I can talk to refugees, and they love what I'm saying, but
But the Germans don't like
the
it.
Germans will just like, no, you cannot say like this. A refugee would listen and discuss with me and say like, I like this point, I don't like this point, and they can discuss with me. But the Germans want to protect them. No, they are traumatized.
And again, that's the we are superior to you.
So what we have seen, of course, like waves of like problems like rape, problems like sexual harassment.
I call those undocumented
crimes.
lovers.
Yes,
It's not rape. Undocumented lovers.
Undocumented lovers. Not it's like, and then you find official statistic common and say like crime became less in Germany, and people just laugh because they feel it's different, and of course many cases are not documented.
Right,
so
of course.
Therefore, undocumented lovers. That's.
Oh, now it hit you. It took,
It works.
the joke required an incubation period.
Incubation period, exactly. So the society is like our Chancellor, Mrs. Merkel, is just splitting Europe, splitting Germany, and even splitting her own party. So now she's in a serious crisis. The society in Germany is divided. Like the other side is pro-immigration without any critical reflection. And the other one is sometimes, I have to say, with some racist attitudes that I don't like either.
Right.
So why don't we sit? We had a wonderful guy in Germany some decades ago called Jürgen Habermas. Very important philosopher. He was seeking or hoping to reach something that he was called ethic discourse. Ethic discourse, which is not based on moralized truths at the beginning, so that's true and that's not true, but based on God is having an argument and Hamid is having an argument, the compulsion of the better argument only is deciding who is right, not certain preconditions which are moralized.
Right.
So now we are having exactly the opposite. So now the truth is there, and you have to believe it. It's quasi-religious.
Well,
refugees are good, and you have to help them. Otherwise, you are not a part of humanity.
That's why I call, by the way, quote, progressivism a form of quasi-religion, because it starts with revealed truths.
Exactly.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Any position that questions how many immigrants we let in is racist.
Yes.
End of conversation.
Yes.
How could we? What's the next step? We can't talk.
Yeah, we cannot talk.
Yeah.
We cannot. So the discourse is so stacked, and you have you cannot get out of it. So I just I'm living with that. So people who are calling me a racist, Islamophobic, I don't even answer. It's okay. So you call me whatever you want. I will do it for my freedom. That I will just say my opinion. I'm not gonna color myself just to be liked by any government or by any intellectuals. So you are surrounded by the political parties and the journalists who, in most of the cases, are socialized in the left field.
Right.
So on the left ideology, and some of them are real ideologists, and it's making the discussion. In the past, we were having something called feuilletons, like the newspapers pages.
Like back and forths.
Yeah, so they were introducing science and social debates to the public reader. So they were intermediating between science and the normal reader. So now those people who are writing in those feuilletons, they just like the critic pages, they are just like moralizing all the time.
Yeah.
That's right and that's wrong, and why are you doing this? Why don't you mediate? That's your job as a journalist, to mediate, to inform me, and to mediate between art, politics, science, and the society. So this role, so they became activists. So I don't like journalists who are writing like activists. So rationality, and so I'm seeing something which is very dangerous beyond. So I'm not afraid because of so many refugees. I'm not afraid of Islamization of Europe or the West. I'm afraid that the citizen, the citoyen, is not strong anymore. Is not standing on solid ground. The thing which made Europe, which made Canada, which made the United States, United States. So where is the citizen who is having an opinion, who is informing himself from different channels, who's open to different points of view, who can discuss. You cannot be a part of a discussion about Islam or migration or feminism or any kind of thing without being put in a box. Why is it? Like, I came from Egypt because I was infatuated. I was so mesmerized by this culture, open discussions, freedom of speech. Now we are selling our freedom of speech with the salami tactic, piece by piece.
Exactly.
And it's not just like, hey, Mr. Abdel-Samad, what are you talking about? You still can publish your books. Oh, thank you for your mercy. It's you are giving me now a credit.
عم بيربحك جميلة.
جميلة. So should I be grateful that I'm publishing? This is a matter of course. No, it's not about if I publish my book or not. It's not about if I appear on TV or not. But how you react to my opinion. So Adorno was saying something already a long time ago in Germany that a different opinion still can be printed in Germany, but it will be punished immediately. So that's what's happening with me. Like I can just post anything on Twitter or on Facebook, and the punishment comes from different side, like parliament members, like intellectuals, writers. What's wrong with you? Why don't you discuss with me about the content of what I wrote? No. Like heartless, lack of humanity, Islamophobic, racist.
Of course.
You name it.
You know, I think that's one of the reasons why these types of shows, I mean, your show, what I do, let's take an even much bigger forum, someone which I would love, I'll try to, if you're interested, try to get you on his show, Joe Rogan. Do you know who that is?
Yeah.
Let's do Joe Rogan. Here's a guy who, if you look at his influence at this point, it's probably more than CNN, MSNBC, CBS combined, right? Because people are truly starving for unbiased, independent, long format chats between people. Many times they agree, many times they disagree, but it's done respectfully. And I see the impact. I mean, I just opened my computer not knowing whether anybody will ever listen to me, right? I didn't know. I mean, I'm sure maybe you thought, well, probably there was more thirst for what you were doing. I didn't know if some academic people are going to be interested in it. And then look at now the platform that I've built. So I think this is how you fight. And by the way, I received a letter. If he's going to watch, he'll be happy to know this. I'll say, someone wrote to me from somewhere in a university in Canada, I don't know where. He said, oh, can I come and meet Hamid Abdel-Samad? I said, well, probably not. But he said, I watched him and he got me out of Islam. And he freed my mind and so on. And I'm sure this has happened to millions of people. So I think, you know, what we're doing, of course we do it just because we're honest and we want to pursue the truth. But I think this is the way that you get people to change their minds. Not in little tidbits of television, 3 minutes, where people are shouting over each other.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly, like I'm getting this feedback and I'm seeing the results with Muslims, believing Muslims who will just like, you made me think. And some of them tell me, you made me leave Islam because I didn't find the point in it. And it's okay. I never tell people leave Islam.
Right.
I just say like, that's what I think about Islam. And you too, you have the right to think about it. Don't give me a blanco check, but don't give your sheikh or imam a blanco check either. So just like go and search by yourself. And many German people come to my lectures and I feel sometimes sad like that somebody who is a lawyer or a teacher has to come and say like, you are amazing. Yeah, I love what you... And I say like...
I got a million of those.
Come on, we are in a free country, or it's supposed to be free. And maybe it's not free because you are not free to say what you think. So do it the way I do it. Because they ask me, what can we do? And I say, do it the way I do it. If you like what I say, also you communicate that.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to be called racist. At a certain point, they will figure out they cannot call 60 or 70% of the society racist.
Yeah.
So, but still, like, because of many reasons, I don't think it's only the German history, because we have the same phenomena in the United States and in Canada and France and in England. Intellectuals can be blackmailed.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to this topic, immigration or
try to be a professor at a university and do what I do.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
You know, I had on my show I think it was last week, a woman. Her name is Candace Owens. Do you know who she is? She's a young black woman. That she's black will be relevant in a second. Usually blacks in the United States is Democrats, right? Republicans are all racist and they're KKK members, and so everybody should vote Democrat. And she came along. She used to be, quote, a liberal progressive, and now she calls herself proudly a black conservative. And she has, I think, a hashtag, nobody's victim or something like that.
Yeah.
She's trying to break through the sort of the victimology mindset.
Yeah.
The reason I'm mentioning her is because here's a woman who, doesn't have your background. She's not, a professor like me. She started with nothing. She opened her computer, and today she has a massive following. Kanye West, the famous rapper, tweeted about her, I like how she thinks, and suddenly now she's invited with Donald Trump. Now, I'm not saying that every person who gets engaged is going to have that impact, but I want people to be empowered that you don't have to have a starting huge platform to make a difference. You could be speaking at a bar with someone, and if you change one mind, it's good. You could engage somebody on Facebook. If your professor says something that's stupid, you could challenge him or her politely in class. Don't walk away and hope that it's only Hamid and Gad who are going to fight your battle.
Exactly. I know that very well. I used to work at the University of Munich, and I had a very lovely professor who was a good friend. And he saw, when I published my first book, Farewell to Heaven, it was shocking, of course, because when a Muslim is writing like this, and it's the same thoughts I'm having. And he said, Hamid, I want to give you advice as your professor. You are on your best way to become a professor. If you want to be professor in Germany,
Shut
you
up.
cannot publish such books. We had someone in Germany who was refused to become a professor, although he was very good, because he was writing novels with a sexual scene, one novel with a sexual scene. So this was an argument not to choose him as a professor in Germany. So it didn't take me long. I told him I quit.
Yeah.
I didn't come to this country to become a professor. I came here to become free, to
Wow.
write and think what I say. And he's saying, okay, what are you going to do? How are you going to live? And so, no, these are not the primary questions. The questions, where can I be free? So I decided to be a free author,
Right.
like to write what I think. And I think that's exactly what's attracting so many people to reading my books, because they think he's not working for anyone.
Yeah.
He's just really thinking.
You're just beholden to the truth.
I'm
not
just
to,
saying
yeah.
what I think, and I don't even claim what I say is the absolute truth. It's just people, I think like this, and I will not allow any person, not a Muslim, not an imam, not a terrorist standing with a gun, to stop me from saying what I believe and what I think. And I think this is the core of a successful society, when somebody is standing on solid soils and saying what he thinks freely. And the more we are having people who are afraid to say the truth, to say what they think, they are allowing the radicals to take over.
As you were saying this, it's as if you were channeling. Do you know who Stephen Biko is? Stephen Biko was a black activist against apartheid when apartheid in South Africa was big. And I had seen the movie about his story in the 80s called, I was a very young guy in my early 20s. The movie was called Cry Freedom. This is when I was first exposed to Stephen Biko. And because I saw that movie, I started looking at his writings. And one was called, and I hope everybody checks it out, the book is called I Write What I Like, I think. And it's exactly what you just said, right?
Exactly.
Guess what happened to him? He was tortured to death. Not that I wish that.
No.
But the point is that what you just channeled is exactly that. It's an irreverence to ever being threatened from speaking the truth. And I think to a much lesser degree than you, I also receive threats and so on. And my wife, who's sitting here but out of the camera, will sometimes ask me, what the hell, man? We have young kids. Shut up already, right? And I always say, look,
wrong.
Right. And I don't mean to imply that she doesn't support what I do, but it's a natural reaction to say, hey, look, why do we have to be the martyrs? And my answer is, well, first we have young children, so I'm fighting for them. But secondly, when I go to bed at night and put my head on my pillow, I don't feel right, bidamiri, in my conscience, if I haven't done anything that I can, however big, however small. Yeah. So everybody's got power. Some of us have bigger platforms, some of us have smaller platform. But if you pass by an injury to truth and you don't intervene, you're a coward.
That's exactly the point. Many people are saying that to me. Like, look, what kind of life are you leading? This is horrible. Like, to be surrounded by all of these policemen all the time. To be scared. I'm not scared. I'm not afraid. Why are you doing that? Anyway, it's a lost case. You cannot reform Islam and you cannot reform Muslim. I said, I don't do that to reform Islam or to enlighten Muslim. I do it for my own freedom. I left my country to live in freedom, and that was the motor of my life, freedom. So, and no matter under which conditions I live, exactly that happens. When I go to bed, when I look into myself in the mirror, I just feel good. I respect myself, and that's this respect for myself is the highest thing I want.
That's it.
From this life, and I feel good inside myself. And this is not the only thing I'm doing in my life. Like I'm working on many aspects of my life which are not seen, and that's also something which is achieving the balance.
Wonderful. Any projects that maybe you want to use this forum to promote that maybe people are not aware of before we wrap it up?
The only project I have is freedom. So be free, be happy, enjoy, allow love to be a part of your life. That's the only thing I promote.
Habib Elvi, thank you so much. Such a pleasure to meet you in
Thank you.
person.
Thank
Cheers.
You.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you.